let's put ourselves in the shoes of one of the customers that we talk to each and every day. There's a process that we go through. We've developed internally kind of a workshop format, which we can obviously offer to any prospect or inquiries. But if I'm that client, what are some of the things that I need to be thinking about as I go through and I navigate this landscape, right? You talked about, the packaging, and you've talked about some of the tech things. Sounds like there's some third-party compatibility. How do you kind of package this into, there's kind of the business side of it, which is, I think, the short-term financial implications that obviously executives are going to be facing, and then there's the whole technology side of it, which is, where are we going today, and how are we going to transition potentially to something else in the future, and or maybe capitalize or monetize on the stack.
So, that's a loaded question, Christian. And honestly, it kind of depends on how much time, how much runway the client has before they have to make a decision. If there's not a lot of time before your renewal is up, I think our recommendation right now is really to just kind of kick the can, go with a short-term renewal. Try to reduce the footprint as much as possible. Have a very good idea of what feature set that you're using and what you need to use, because certainly you don't want to go with the VMware Cloud Foundation or the most expensive package if you're not using any of those features. But if you can buy time, this is your opportunity to really go workload by workload and determine where the best place for that workload to reside. And it's an opportunity to really rethink the architecture of the infrastructure. So, an example, there are certain applications that maybe lend themselves to software as a service. I think a majority of our clients at this point have moved their exchange to a software as a service offering, as opposed to keeping it on-prem. So that's an example of reducing footprint. There are other applications that would fall under that category. Some of your newer applications maybe lend themselves to, an application modernization. Instead of just sticking them on a VM, maybe we're talking about containers. Maybe we're talking about putting those out on the cloud, or even doing some sort of hybrid offering where you can run containers on-prem for certain things and then out on the cloud if you need to scale it quickly. There are options if you're looking to really look to more of an OpEx model, to just infrastructure as a service. So move to one of the public clouds and just move your server virtualization workloads out there. So there are ways of reducing your VMware footprint, even if you don't completely get off of VMware. There are some workloads that obviously need to stay on-prem. So there are instances where we're dealing with things like latency. You need it to perform very well. It's got to stay close to the client. Probably have to leave those things on-prem. There are things with compliance. I need my data. I need it in my data center. I can't have it out in a public cloud. So there are certain instances where it does lend itself to staying on-prem, and you can start looking at hypervisor solutions that support those particular workloads. But I think the most important thing is to look at it from a workload to workload perspective, which requires time. It's not something you can do quickly.
No, that's a great point. There are real world problems, primarily being the financial problem first and foremost, right? Which is the one that's going to hit everyone come renewal time. And I think the obviously the knee jerk there is, well, we're gonna find something else, because in the tech world we're used to finding the bigger, better, faster, cheaper option. And in the world of hypervisors, the options really are pretty limited, and with the integration they have with third parties, etc. But I hear the positive message here, right? Instead of the sensationalizing the issue, it's more about, number one, reevaluating your workloads, making sure that the workload is placed at in the right place, in the right on-prem, off-prem? Does the application need to be modernized? There's probably a chance for some optimization when it comes down to overall workload placement and the licensing that you need, right? Reducing that footprint, as you called out. That likely are the knee-jerk reaction of hey, get off of it, move away, may not be the right thing to do. How do customers start this process? I mean, you said it takes time. It's long and arduous sometimes. When you think about the applications, you have everything from production applications to in-house development. How do you systematically go through that?
Yeah, so one of the key things is getting a task force together, probably internally. This is not an infrastructure or an operations team discussion that can be done in a vacuum. This is a discussion that needs to bring in vendor management, needs to bring in your security teams and your compliance teams, your application teams. Again, probably have some dependencies on VMware that you may not even be aware of. And when you're talking about something that big, you really need executive sponsorship as well. So it's a workshop type thing where you need to get all the people in the room and you need to start, identifying your applications, identifying your critical, business critical applications and work on those first, and really set some scope around requirements for those particular applications. I think the most important thing that you can do as you're going through these applications is, if you have that scope and requirements, is to eliminate options as quickly as possible. It gets very easy to get hung up on all of the different options that are out there and waste a lot of time going down rabbit holes that you didn't have to go down. So defining your requirements for your applications and then being very strict as you evaluate different options will save you a lot of time in the long run.
Fantastic. And kind of that philosophy that you're talking about,